This episode of EMS One-Stop is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's Lexipol.com.
All we want to do is save your life. Some of you don't make it easy.
Get out of my house! Gun!
I didn't know you could run that fast. Most people in this job can't last a year. They can't hack it.
Take my dollar, you mother...
You are senior, you get the student.
No.
Is there another paramedic I should put them with? Somebody better than you?
Nobody's better than me.
Let's hit it.
Why are you here?
Because I want to save lives. You have people's lives in your hands. How can you not care?
I'm burning out. The whole system is broken. I need the hell out of EMS. I'm quitting. That's it. I'm out of here.
Please don't go out like this.
You gonna miss me?
We're just co-workers, man. You act like I'm like your best friend. Damn it, I'm his best friend.
Can you feel the...
I got into EMS because I really wanted to help people.
Officers, we've got this totally under control.
But this is a job.
Oh, come on! Come on!
You clock in, you clock out.
I don't think you really believe that.
Can you feel the...
I'm the President of the United States!
Mr. President, let's Secret Service, man. We're here to evacuate you and take you to the White House.
What about the First Lady and the Vice President?
We're gonna send a second chopper.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the EMS One-Stop. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence, and today we're going to go to the movies. And for those of you that have been reading EMS One, you would have seen that my review of the upcoming EMS movie, Code 3, has been published. I know that thousands of you have seen the trailer. I know that even more than thousands of you have commented on the trailer, and perhaps it's a story of your life. It's a reflection of the shift that you've probably run. It's one of those been there, seen there, done it type things. It's a checklist of everything that you've done in EMS, perhaps. And there's a good reason for that. And that's because one of the co-writers of Code 3 is here with me today. And it's Patrick Pianezza. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rob. Very excited to be here and talk about the movie.
Well, firstly, congratulations on many EMS folks say I've got a book in me. Not many EMS folks say I've got a screenplay in me. So again, congratulations on that. But before we go any further, of course, let's just go back to 10 or possibly 15 years ago. One of the very first EMS podcasts out there, and I'm going to make this a claim to fame for you and me, and our buddy Chris Cebollero, was the EMS Leadership Podcast. And of course, we are old presenters of yesteryear, the OG of EMS podcasts. So good to see you again.
Speak
man.
for yourself. I was only like 15 years old when that podcast came out.
I thought so. There we go. So yeah, we've been doing this podcast malarkey for a while, but you had a screenplay in you, and so just set us up first of all with who is Patrick Pianezza.
No, I appreciate that. And yeah, so I grew up in Central Illinois and was an EMT and a firefighter at a local volunteer firehouse, and did that for about 4 years while I was going to paramedic school. I was also working in the emergency room because I was technically too young to drive the ambulance. The insurance company for the one of the local ambulance companies wouldn't cover you until you were 21, and I got started when I was 19. So the only way, the only way to get experience was to work in the ER because I couldn't drive the ambulance. Ironically enough, I could drive the fire truck, but not an ambulance, which is something that always kind of cracks me up. But that's where I got my start. And as I started to gain some experience, it was kind of funny and sad and starting to see the realities of what 911 is and the things that we see and then the situations that we're in. And having garnered all that, I would come home even after some menial calls, and I would tell my family because we would all sit at the kitchen table. And I had, if any of you are like me back in the day, we're talking late 90s, very early 2000s, the giant red pager, the volunteer iconic pager. And that thing would scream, and I'd get up from dinner and run out the house and run to the firehouse and go take care of whatever it was that we were charged with doing, and then come back. And my family would always ask, like, what was it? What was interesting? What happened? And just this collection of stories over years was something that was always fascinating. And my brother and my father well, my mom too, everybody would just say, you need to write a book. You need to tell the story. Like, this is insane. That would never happen. And that's in a very rural community in central Illinois. And then as my career kind of expanded, I moved to South Carolina. I went to college at USC, and I will defend to this day the real USC. Went to the University of South Carolina, and I worked for Lexington County 911 or Lexington County EMS, and that's where I did the bulk of my true career. I was a paramedic crew chief at that time, and ran all sorts of calls in urban, rural Lexington County, South Carolina, and just added to all of that experience. And again, like the weekly calls with mom were, "What's going on?" And you tell them stories, and that can't be real. That's not real. You can't. That's insane. And that was really kind of the impetus. My brother actually was the major motivating factor. You got to start writing this stuff down. And so I did. And one of the things that was funny is I never really journaled. I've never been one for a diary. And so every once in a while I'd write something down, and it was more or less a collection of post-it notes and scraps of bits of paper. And it was kind of like keywords or this funny thing that happened on scene. And what I would tell people all the time is that EMS is, utter boredom mixed in with moments of sheer terror. And that to me has always accurately defined 911. And part of that is making the mundane interesting. And I think you see that a lot in the characters that we tried to create with these people. And so it's this idea of someone who's very fraught, very broken, very burnt out. And that was me too. I will be abundantly clear. I have not clinically worked for the better part of a decade. I do still have my patch, but I've not worked in the field in a very long time. But I went through a significant transition of just being burnt out and kind of broken. And that includes therapy. I'll put that right out there at the outset in order to what I call become human. And that's hopefully the same sensation you get when you watch the film.
So let's just talk about your brother. Of course, your brother Paul is in the biz, as they say, and so you had some assistance when you were sort of, again, you've got your post-it notes, you've been writing down the anecdotes, you've been telling the stories, but of course you have to go from there to getting it into a script and getting it, into the system and getting someone to look at it. And so, how did that work?
Yeah, that was the very short answer is you have to be lucky. There are thousands of writers that are better than I am, and there's no way for me to puff my chest and say I was the only person that could write this story. That's unequivocally not the case. I was incredibly fortunate in that my brother was a VFX producer, visual effects producer in the business. He was one of those kids that packed his car and said, "I'm moving to LA to go work on movies," and by God, he did it. And so he did. He still currently works in the film industry. He does visual effects production. And with him telling me I had to write a script, I went out and visited him one day when I was in college. And he said, "Why don't you do what everybody does in LA? And that's write a script." And so I'm in Santa Monica in a 3-bedroom apartment with like 4 roommates that I was couch surfing on for the week-long vacation that I was there. And he just told me, he says, "Put it on paper, write a script." And I told him flat out, "I don't know anything about writing a script." And he got me the program that everybody uses is called Final Draft. And he set it up, and he basically was like, "You're not leaving the house until you put something on this page." And so I did. I was very lucky that in college, I was still in college at the time, but I took a creative writing class. And this is truly the impetus of the entire film was my undergraduate degree is in public relations. And so I had to take a creative writing class. And that was never really where I thought my forte was going to be. And this professor just blew my head open by just saying, "Write what you know." And he said, "Those make the best stories." And I had just came off a late shift, like a 14-hour shift, and I worked night shift all through college. So I was in his class at 10 a.m., had just gotten off the truck maybe an hour and a half earlier and ran to campus. And he said this, and I'm sure it's one of those things that's cliche now to hear, write what you know. But I had never heard that before. And the singular thought that went through my mind was, "Oh, you want a story?" And I just went on my computer and cranked out this 36-page short story about EMS and all of these thoughts that had bubbling up for years and years and years. Flash forward to when I'm visiting my brother, and I just took that short story and I turned it into the script. And the first draft is always garbage. I'm not going to tell you that it was brilliant, but it was good enough. And my brother at the time was working with Chris Leone, who's the director of the film. And so him and Paul were he goes by Pizza, were coworkers. And Pizza asks Chris, he goes, "Hey, you want to read a script my brother wrote?" And Chris emphatically just said, "Absolutely not. There's no world where I want to read this." The inside baseball for anybody who's not in LA is that LA is literally littered with unsolicited scripts. And so just getting your script read is a monumental achievement, especially for somebody who's not in the business. The short version is my brother is the most tenacious human being I've ever met and kept wearing Chris down. And if memory serves right, I was not there. I believe Chris lost a bet, and the wager was he had to read the script in order to fulfill his obligation to bet, and he did. And he loved it, and we made the movie the next day. No, he read it and was interested. I remember the question that Chris posed was, "What does Patrick know about being a paramedic?" And my brother Paul said, "Well, he's been a paramedic for 10 years." And so that gave me some credibility. And he read the script and he found that there was a raw story there that he was really fascinated by. And Chris, by his own measure, is a spectacular writer. He's a writer first, and his vision for, scenes and conflict and everything else was a fantastic ad. And he came on board and made it a million times is not enough better than what it was. And we started having regular meetings, and I slowly became friends with Chris over the past decade. And that's how everything picked up. So it all started with a short story that I still have that's graded by my original professor, that turned into a script that Chris finally read. And 10 years after that, the movie got made. So anybody who tells you they could do it in a weekend is lying.
So props to Chris, or Christopher Leone. Of course, he is not only your co-writer, he's also the director of the movie. And so you, as you say, there is an element of luck there. Now, at this point, we just have to really thank Wayfarer Studios and Aura Entertainment, because they very kindly let me have the top secret link to Patrick's movie, Code 3. And so I, probably outside of Patrick's close circle, have actually seen the full movie, and I was blown away. And we're going to talk about that when we come back after the break.
Lexipol empowers first responders and public servants to best meet the needs of their residents safely and responsibly. Serving more than 2 million public safety and government professionals in over 8,000 agencies and municipalities, Lexipol offers a range of solutions that includes policies, training, behavioral health resources, news and analysis, and grant assistance services for law enforcement, fire and rescue, EMS, local government, and other agencies dedicated to public safety. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's LEXIPOL.com.
And we're back. Please make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast or vodcast from. I say this every time. Please remember that we are on Apple Podcast and any other podcast platform. And we're also on YouTube. So not only can you hear us, you can also see us. And hopefully, if you're going to watch the vodcast, we'll have a couple of stills from the movie that you may have seen already, or not, as the case may be. So we're talking to paramedic Patrick Pianezza. We're talking about Code 3, which is the movie starring Rainn Wilson. It's in theatres from the 12th of September, and so make sure that you go. You've seen the trailer out there already. We've seen the comments on the trailer. We've seen the amount of shares from the trailer. And of course, the guys and girls and folk on the ground get this story because it's probably a catalogue of their EMS life. Patrick, we're going to continue the story. So you've got your friend Chris, of course, in the biz. How do you take it from there? And of course, these things ain't cheap. So what happened next?
So really, it was a 10-year journey. Again, it was in total, it took 14 years. It was 10 years since once Chris got involved, because just because you have a story, you then have to refine it. And none of us are getting paid for this work, and it certainly wasn't full time. And so, for instance, not to bore everybody with how the sausage is made, the very abbreviated version is Chris and I would email back and forth on scripts or ideas or notes. and then we would continue to refine it. Once it got to a point where we felt that it was, quote, shareable, Chris shared it with his agent, and then he started to pitch it because, again, at this point, I'm still working 911. I'm not a known entity. I was working, depending on the year. I'd started my career in healthcare, programmatic management for different health systems, and started going to meetings and started to tell the story about why should we do this. And the short version is, and I don't know the origination of this, but somehow Rainn Wilson got a copy of the script, and Rainn read it and flipped for it, just loved it. And Rainn got it to the finish line. So Rainn's the one who brought Wayfair in, and then got us greenlit, basically. There's a whole lot of minutia, millions of little steps that occur there. But if it wasn't for Rainn reading it and falling in love with it, we would not be here. So a lot of people worked incredibly hard to get it here. And then Wayfair basically put up $7 million or $7.5 million for the budget, and we were off to the races. And nothing happens for 14 years, and then the brakes fall off. I got a phone call. It was really kind of funny in retrospect. I was laid off in December of 2022, and January 2021, I got a phone call from Chris with zero warning going, "Hey, we're going to start scouting ambulances. Are you available on like Tuesday to come look at some of this stuff? Because we want to see if this will work." And that was the impetus we started off to the races on this movie stuff. And then a lot of amazing artistic crew and creators came on board and made it
and
a
actually
reality.
That's where this thing comes full circle back into real life EMS, because of course I get a phone call from my mate Patrick and a couple others and saying, do I know of any good ambulance companies that will basically loan us an ambulance fleet and enter Lifeline EMS of Los Angeles?
Actually, I'm going to correct you. That's not what happened. I was on set while we were. Here's the
go on
exact
then.
phone call I had.
That's
We're
my
sitting
version,
there-
and I'm sticking to it.
That's
But
your
go
version.
on.
Here's what really happened, folks. I was sitting on set while we were working and trying to figure out how to get an ambulance, and I had lost touch with my buddy here, Rob, and Chris, and some of these other folks. And all of a sudden, my phone rings and it says Rob Lawrence on it, and I answer. I said, "Oh, I haven't talked to Rob in a while. This is very fortuitous." And this was his exact words, ladies and gentlemen. "You cheeky bastard! Did you write an EMS movie?"
Bar steward, actually. There we are.
You can cut that if you want, Rob. But that's
No.
what
It's
I
staying.
always
It's staying in. It's staying in. It's probably. And again, we're going to talk about the sweariness of the movie in a minute. So this is going to stay in the cut. But of course, we worked together, and we found our friends at Lifeline, and you guys went down, scouted them out. They have been exceptionally supportive and loaned their vehicles, their fleet, and indeed, having seen the movie, a few extras as well. And in fact, I spotted you. You've got a cameo there too. But again, let's thank them, because I think they've done a superb job in trusting you to do what you've done.
You could not find a better partner, full stop, at all. Between Danielle and the team there at Lifeline, they were absolutely instrumental in making this real. They not only provided the ambulance, but they also provided an immense amount of expertise. Again, you have to remember that I had not clinically worked for over 5, 6, maybe 10 years. And so getting the actors up to speed, just for instance, we had a day to train Aimee, Rel, and Rainn to be paramedics, or at least EMTs. And my running joke is I still think that I could give Aimee the EMT test and she would pass. She was so excited and engaged in all of the training. Rainn and Rel were very much involved. We got them all CPR certified for healthcare provider. We got them legit CPR cards. So when you see the movie, you see actual CPR, which has always been one of my biggest frustrations.
If you've seen my review, people out there, you'll know that I did make a note about Rainn Wilson can now do CPR. Wink. Carry on, Patrick.
But yeah, we took them through their paces, and Lifeline was great. They were just amazing. They provided us a training space, all the dummies that we needed. When it came to the operations of the film, so a lot of stuff hit the cutting room floor, but we were dosing drugs. And so, the little boxes that you would need, the pink box for lidocaine, that, all the purple box for lidocaine. I mean, all of those things, they provided all of that to us. They gave us the rhythm generator. So the other major complaint I have about Hollywood is, what are they always doing? They're always shocking asystole, and that we absolutely refuse to do that. So we had a rhythm generator that Lifeline let us borrow. So you see VFib on the monitor, and that's why we shock somebody. We intubate
I have
people
been
to prevent.
officially told to shut up at home when I watch medical shows because how can this patient be in absolute critical care when there's normal sinus rhythm and great sats? I'm now told to, and I'm sure we all do the same thing. There needs to be a study, Remley Crowe and co. do a study on, we've done the study on the amount of people that are saved in medical dramas, but we need to do the study of the amount of people that would appear to be really sick, but actually all the monitors they have appear to make them look really well. That's just my thing.
Exactly, and that's my thing too, and I think that's everybody who has done any amount of work in this space. I'll never forget. I watched a TV show and somebody was intubated. I couldn't remember the TV show, but he turned to his family and said, "I love you and I'll miss you when I'm gone." And he's got an endotracheal tube sticking out. I'm
Yep.
like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And to Chris's and Rainn and all of them. And I'm not. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other names here, but the one thing, the through line through the entire film was we are going to be very accurate. And to the medical stuff is a small piece, but it's such an important piece in order for us to convey competence and to gain everybody's willingness to watch the film. And we did multiple takes when, if Rainn's hand was in the wrong place or Aimee was doing lung sounds over the belly, and I ran over to him and be like, no, the lungs are up here.
Yeah. And yes, everybody, they're all
So
wearing gloves, just FYI.
that is, and I'm not kidding, the single biggest inside joke of the entire set. Every single day, a woman named Aimee was the script supervisor, and her job was to ensure continuity between takes. And the number of times, which is definitely in the thousands, of her and I standing side by side yelling gloves at the actors to make sure that they were wearing gloves was, if there was one quote, in fact, it's over here. You can't see it. It's on my wall of things. It's the biggest quote. If you talk to any of the cast and crew, that's the one thing everybody hears screaming thousands of times is gloves. Make sure you have gloves on.
Great, great. Now, of course, what everybody's listening to this podcast for, and you've waited long enough, is actually the plot. So, as I've mentioned, Wayfarer Studios and Aura very kindly let me watch the movie. I've written the review. There are no spoilers in the review. People have already seen the trailer, and let's just do first thing first. It's a bit sweary. Why?
Because that's true. I've yet to meet anyone who has spent any significant amount of time in public safety in any branch, whether that's police, fire, EMS, dispatch, etc. And we are insanely professional, mostly on scene. And then as soon as the door is closed, or you're cleaning up the truck, the realities come out. And I think that part of that is the authenticity of the job. And because we see amazing, beautiful things when children are born, assuming there's no complications. And the very sad reality, the majority of what we see is horrifically traumatic. No one calls 911 because they're having a great day. And I think part of that barrier of being able to speak your mind freely with the person you're riding the crew with, or the beaver tail talk when you're at the hospital, that stuff comes out. I don't think that we have the luxury of censoring ourselves when it's just us. And the sweariness just is part of that natural part of that. Now I have, when I'm pretending to be not professional, I tend to have a little bit of a potty mouth as well, but I think that's part of the honesty of the conversations that we're having. And the cast totally embrace that, and they just absorb that as part of their character. And I think it helps tell the story because, again, it lends itself to, yeah, this stuff is dark sometimes.
Yeah.
And we had the opportunity to take all three of them. Well, I'm sorry, Rel couldn't make it, but Rainn and Aimee did ride time with LA County Station 14. We took them to South Central LA. We found the busiest house by statistic, and I made friends with the captain there. And they were gracious to allow us to be able to come and do a 12-hour ride along with them. And so we were going into whatever you're imagining is the South Central LA 911 calls with LA County Fire Department. And those actors got to see the reality of what it is that we saw every single day. And to see their reaction from that, absorb that, and put that in the movie was magical.
So again, no spoilers, but take us on Randy's journey, Patrick.
Yeah, I'd love to. Randy is an amalgamation of a lot of people. And I tell everybody that this is not an autobiography. It never was. That's why his name is Randy and not Patrick. In fact, Randy is named after my paramedic instructor. And that's why his name is Randy, a man who made an enormous impact on my life. Randy Ramadka is an amazing human being, and that's who I named my main character after. He is all of us, including myself. And so what you see is a person that is doing his best to get by on the wages that he is making after being in I can't remember what the actual line is. I think it's like he'd been in EMS for 15 years or something. And that fraying of his resiliency just disappearing and his inability to see that. And as you see in the trailer, he gets a dirty needle stick, which I have had in my career, and thankfully didn't have any major repercussions from that. But you kind of see that kind of break with him, and it's this chaos that we embody day in and day out. And so now he's in a position where he's training this ride along for the day with his longtime partner Rel, who in the movie there's this line about like he's the only guy I want to ride with, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. There are people that we love who might be the most aggravating partner you've ever had, but you love riding with them for whatever reason. And what Aimee brings to this story is this ability, this outsider's view in, where we're bringing an audience member who maybe doesn't work in EMS to be witness to the chaos and the beauty and the amazingness that is this field that we work on. And the thing that we were always honest to, and I say Chris and myself for sure, and Rainn as well, was that we played it very honestly. You see the emotional toll that the job takes, but you also see it on set, or I'm sorry, on scene. He's very professional. He's very empathetic. He is doing the job that all of us strive to do. And then you see his humanity and his humanness when he's not in front of a patient. And that to me was amazing to watch somebody be able to do on screen.
You know, I said in the review that I laughed out loud, but actually that onion chopping ninja came round and I needed a little Kleenex at a couple of points. So again, we're going to go on the full warts and all journey of an EMS day, an EMS life, and an EMS shift. You also, you know, one of the things that I noted as well is that he told people he's not okay. And it's one of the things we talk about. The burnout is very, very real. You said it yourself. And it actually, again, the movie acknowledges a number of things. It acknowledges the burnout. It actually, and again, to those that have been commenting on social media, yes, it addresses reimbursement. It addresses pay and salary. And actually, that was one of the things we talked about fairly early on as we were working to get an ambulance company involved is, hey, we'd really love if you talk about the sad case of reimbursement. So you've taken all those things on board and they are woven into the thread of the movie, which I think is superb.
We worked really hard, and the trailer does a fantastic job of generating excitement, and I'm very proud of it. But to your point, this movie is not Super Troopers, Mother Jugs and Speed. There are very funny moments in it, but to your point, like the whole point of this story is to be honest. This is not meant to just be EMS. I've seen the comments about, is EMS a joke? Are our paramedics the punchline? And that's absolutely not the case. And like Rob said, I'm not going to spoil it, but just know that you are in for what I hope to be an incredibly authentic telling of what EMS is, what this job does to a person, as well as how it impacts, you know, family members and your relationships. But yeah, there was no way to confront the story without talking about salaries, without talking about reimbursements, because while everybody complains about salaries, we certainly have the reimbursement issues with Medicare and Medicaid, which have been well known for well over 20 years. And so we touch on that. It's not the major point of the movie. Nobody wants to see a movie about Medicare and Medicaid, but we are as honest as we can be while showing the public, inviting them to see what this job is like.
And it is, and again, this is a good representation of life on the truck, on the street, with a guy that is clearly burned out, but a person that cares, that has passion, commitment, and will always do the right thing. And everybody, Patrick, is going to relate to that. And so, final question before we go, I always ask this of all my guests: is there anything I've forgotten to ask, or anything that you want to tell us?
Well, I think something that you said earlier that I want to circle back to is that Rainn does come out and say, "I'm not okay. I've got a problem."
Yep.
And this is where it does become slightly autobiographical. Like, again, this is not a story about Patrick, but I remember having that conversation with one of my old bosses, going, "Hey, listen, I'm having an issue here. Like, I can't." For my thing, it was I couldn't hit an IV, and I always was very prideful about my ability to get a stick on anybody. Like, that was one of the skill sets that I had really worked on. And I remember going to him, and I said, "I think I'm burning out. I can't hit the broadside of a barn with a needle. I need some help." And I said, I used the words. I said, "I think I'm burning out." And I'll never forget now, for the audience, remember, this is over 10 years ago. So mentalities have shifted dramatically in the positive light. But back then I said, "I think I'm burning out." And I'll never forget the reaction I got. It's this dark chuckle from I don't know where. And he said, "We're all burnt out. Get back on the truck." And that has always, that took me a long time to get over because I didn't know what else to do. And so I got back on the truck and continued to do the work. And that kind of festering mentality is not healthy. And that's why we wanted to show it as honestly as we could without this being the Patrick show about, yeah, we are all struggling. Well, I shouldn't say that. The people that I have met tend to have struggled with the emotional toll that this job imparts. And if you can imagine, 19-year-old me getting exposed to something like that and doing that for over a decade, that kind of compiles. And that's why I say when I got out, I spent an enormous amount of time seeking help. Over six people that I have worked with have unfortunately committed suicide. And the suicide rates for first responders is double that of the regular population, which is a trait or a statistic that we need to fix. And part of that is acknowledging that and the work that people do to get over those issues. Now, I was very, very fortunate. I was not suicidal, but that burnout is very real. And I don't think there's a way to not talk about it. And I also don't want to end on that kind of melancholy note, but this movie is everything I wanted it to be and then some. And I'm very excited to hear what everyone has to say about it. Could not have asked for better partners with both creatively from Chris and all the amazing cast and crew to the actors, Rainn, Aimee, and Rel, to Lifeline, to Wayfair, to Ara, to everybody has just been incredibly supportive and all in step of wanting to tell a true story of what it is that all of you do day in and day out. I have made multiple videos on my social media, but way before this movie came out, about trying to share gratitude with the people that are still doing the work because it's important work. And I know for a fact, no one tells it to you enough. And so I'll be a broken record here. Thank you for what it is that you do because it matters. I've been in those boots and I'm here to tell you, thank you, because that's what this movie is. This movie is nothing more than a gratitude tour for everyone who works in 911.
So you heard it here first from Patrick. It is a gratitude for all that you do. And as I say, in my review, I'm going to finish with my review finishes that those that know me know my ability to take tactical naps during movies. Well, this one got 2 eyes open and absolutely 5 stars. So we're going to hear from Patrick again very, very soon. We also know that there is a second trailer coming out sometime soon as well. We're also, fingers crossed, working with Rainn Wilson and his team to bring Rainn to you as well for a chat. But for the moment, Code 3 opens in cinemas on the 12th of September. Keep watching out this page, this site, and EMS One for more information. But Patrick, cheers, mate. It's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you today.
Loved every minute of it, Rob. So good to see you again.
So good to see you too. So that was Patrick Pianezza. Please make sure that you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast or vodcast from. Code 3 coming up 12th September in cinemas. Another edition of EMS One-Stop. I've been Rob Lawrence, and until next time, bye for now.